No, that was not
The last time we did the remodeling job, he had to come back and do all these changes that he did not know about because he was not a restaurant guy. Originally, it was estimated at 95,000, and it turned out to be 125,000. So I don't see how that is good planning.
Getting back to the donation, which is what
Yes.
we're supposed to be talking about here. Yeah, my understanding last month was that they had made this donation by the end of June for
year end or something.
Report.
Yeah.
And apparently that wasn't the case, but I really don't know what to say here. We've accepted the donation already. They want us to say, yes, absolutely, we will build a patio. We just don't know what kind of patio, I guess it's.
Well, I guess that's what they're looking at, but if, I mean, they still have the money, I mean, and they could, I guess you could say, pull it back, in fact, not if you don't decide on the patio, but, you know, we don't have possession of the money yet, so. And the bottom line is the council, the city controls how that money is used, and that's, you know, legally the way that goes, and you can make donations and put stipulations on them. And I'm always going to recommend that they be used, you know, that if we accept a donation, that it's used for the intended purpose, just from a, you know, from a goodwill, I mean, good faith standpoint. But this, right, you could either say, well, either the patio or the fire department. I guess that's what it comes down to with this, you know.
I did have a conversation with the Snowmobile Club, and regarding the fire department, the money that they're figuring for the fire department is going to be applied to the, I believe, air packs for the new tank, for the new pumper, which won't be here next year. So they're saying that, you know what, we'll have some more money by the time that pumper comes. We'll have money for the fire department at that time. So they're always looking forward to helping us one way or another.
That they would have money next year again, yes, I'm certain that's.
We'll go towards the fire department. So what do we need?
So, is this one for another motion, or what do we need?
Well, it's, I mean, yeah, you can make another motion, and you can say, I mean, you can make a motion that they accept, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong here, make a motion to designate where that money,
Correct.
if it's, accept that money and say that it's gonna be used for this fire department or for liquor store patio, correct. And then the details of the patio can be worked out. I mean, that's the way this was gonna be anyway. You know, when you have 1 or 2 weeks notice, we weren't gonna have that patio figured out. And even 6 weeks later, you know, we've got a fair idea now, but it's not finalized by any stretch. And it's gonna come back again for the final, you know, if you decide to move ahead with it, it's gonna come back for final approval anyway.
So this estimate on the concrete and the estimate on the fence come to approximately $4,100. What cameras? I would assume you probably have to have a couple of cameras, or
Well, no, I think one camera would be
wide enough to be able
sufficient.
to.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There'd be if there was a door, you'd have the security camera anyway.
Yeah, so that
You
could
just
be,
opened it up.
I don't know, $300 to $500.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure, but I think that's probably close to what they were for the last ones we bought. The main cost was the actual processing thing, it wasn't.
Oh, and on the fence here, one thing I noted is this 4-foot high gate. Didn't we require a 6-foot fence for the patio over there so that people couldn't easily reach over the top? to,
Which we certainly could do.
that,
I mean,
that would be one thing I'd say that,
that's the kind of detail that could be, you know, it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but right, it could. Yeah,
that's a security issue.
right.
So if you're looking for a motion to basically, motion last month to accept the money, but then the motion to apply it to the patio door for the liquor store, money to be used.
If that's the kind of, if that's what you want to make.
Is that the way it would be?
Yeah.
So help me word that correctly.
It could be a brand new motion, or it could be amending the motion from last month. So if it's a motion to amend that, it would be accepting of the donation with the condition that this be directed for usage on the patio, or the door of the liquor store, I guess, and any other monies that would cover.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I will be watching the expense and the size of this very closely, fellas.
So you need a roll, you got a roll call, because you have a split vote.
I'm in favor of it.
It's just a motion, so no. I mean,
Well, you don't?
No,
Okay.
it's not an ordinance, so. As long as you know and can identify those three too, that's sufficient.
Because I've been directed by legal counsel before that every time there's a split vote, there has to be a roll call. Anyway.
This is just to accept the money, not to go ahead with the
Accept
outside.
the money with the intention of applying it to this, not committing ourselves to actually building the patio yet.
Yeah.
If we choose to not do
Perhaps
so,
10 or 15 years
the
down the road.
donation goes away and be redirected how they see fit.
Well, I don't think they're gonna buy that.
No, we make a motion to accept the money, it's going to be applied to the patio. That was the motion.
So construction should start.
No stipulation of when it starts.
But, okay, here's what I would suggest we do. Okay, you voted to accept the donation for the patio. So, I understand the thought process with, because I've said this, laid this out more or less, that we're doing you're discussing the donation tonight, last month, and you've got the relative concept of the patio and what it's gonna cost. But what I would also say is, we're between that and making a final decision, but I would say at August meeting, that, or if we have a special meeting before then, say to talk about, the street project, we should kind of get that nailed down and then make a decision, make a motion and move ahead with it. Because I do think that, it's something that we should get moving ahead with yet this year. I mean, you could say, well, we're gonna do it next year, but we'll use the money for that. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but what I'm saying is that the August,
Little point you have to.
make that
You could have another
decision.
feasibility study and it'll be year 2 reality.
And I don't think it's realistic to do, like I said, a feasibility study. We certainly could try to find somebody to do that. But what I'm saying is, at the August meeting, I will get this stuff more framed up, and I'll get a estimate for a 6-foot fence, and I'll get an estimate hopefully we'll know with the tables and the fixtures if we're gonna get those donated. If not, we'll get costs on that. And then we'll bring it, and that's when I would kind of talk about whether you want to move ahead with it or not, this year. So that it's not going to just be hanging out there, because it'll be like everything else. If we don't, it'll just kind of go, vaporize. So, I want to keep it on the docket here. And if you decide to do it next year, you can make that motion, but then you'll know going in, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it next season or whatever. But then you'll decide that, and so then everybody will know what's, so I'm just saying you don't have to make that decision tonight.
Update on trending area paving, Bigelow.
So
For the benefit of the public.
where we're at with that is, I got a call I sent some correspondence, which is in the packet, to Joel Bigelow, the president, or actually Tony, his son. And basically, in a nutshell, we told them that we had to have a plan from them to do it, and we had to have a signed agreement from them to do it, or the city was gonna go in and do it, and then possibly might take some type of legal action to recoup our costs. Now, after they received that letter, Joel called me last Thursday and told me that he would have a contractor go up there, give him an estimate, and then within 2 weeks, he would pay that contractor half of the cost of half the estimated cost of the finishing the paving. And I told him, well, if you can do that within 2 weeks, I would, say that we would be comfortable with that, as long as it's within line with how the city engineer and the previous city engineer and the council talked about, how it should be finished up within the parameters of the fact that that 2-inch first lift is set for 7 or 8 years. And not knowing that we're realistically not going to rip it up, but at the same time, there has to be patchwork to the existing, and then they have to go over it with 1.5 or 2 inches of new bituminous. And he agreed to this, and the next day, a contractor, BMI, who we've used quite a bit, came and said that Bigelow contacted him and wanted to know when we could go out there. So today, we went out there. The city engineer walked the whole area with him, marked everything off, and so we'll see here in the next couple of weeks, but I'm hoping that they will go through with their word and they'll pay him the 50%. We'll get documentation of it, and the contractor said he'll start if he gets 50%. I mean, he'll do the work and then bill them for the rest of it when he's done.
You have any further comment on that?
No, the approach would be to identify the most critical areas that in the existing surface that need patching, and patch those so they're good and stable before the new overlay is put down. There was some talk last year about maybe leaving the existing surfacing as is and just going with a thicker overlay. But through our discussion today, we reached a consensus that we'd rather do the approach of let's identify the worst areas in the existing surfacing, cut those out, patch them so we have a more stable first lift of the pavement before we put a second lift on. Putting on a thicker lift, you're going to get thicker lift out of the center of the road where there's really not as much wear, and it's really not going to gain you much value for the extra money of that extra pavement. So I think the money is more wisely invested in repairing the damaged areas of the existing pavement and then doing the original 1.5 inch identified final lift of asphalt. So we did go out there. I was out there right up in front of the council meeting time tonight, but we walked every street, marked out what we identified as the highest priority areas for patching. We measured those. He's got those areas marked up. He's going to go prepare a quote and share that with Bigelow, and then I believe they're going to indicate to the administrator whether or not it's something they can afford to move forward with.
So, Joe, do you think after walking that today and marking those spots compared to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, do you think it's within the same ballpark from a cost standpoint?
I think so.
With the changes, and what the contractor talked about doing after he went out there last week and looked at it, drove around, but his recommendation was that bigger areas be patched, and that then if that's done, that he could then get away with putting, and I don't like to use the word get away with, but he could put down 1.5 inches and achieve the same or better result than putting the 2 or maybe even 2.5 inches down. Which after we walked it today, I totally agree with, because there's some areas, I mean, most of the areas are just alligator or cracking, but there's some areas where actually we see washout. I mean, the pavement's there, but you can actually see channels where the water washes out. That's all got to be cut out of there.
There's been some serious settling in certain
Yeah,
places.
and then you got a little bit of subsurface, but thank goodness not too much settling. So anyway, so I think that's encouraging as long as they follow through, and if not, the other thing I'm encouraged about is if we do have to go back and do it, I think that BMI scheduling wise would be able to do it later in the year. I don't think he's completely booked out that he wouldn't be able to get out there and do it. So I mean, I feel better now because I was working under the assumption that these paving contractors, what we've been hearing, that they're booked through the end of the season, all of them are. And I guess maybe that's not quite the case, so that's good.
I guess what I took away from that whole thing was that he was pretty confident that he'd come up with a bid that Bigelow would accept, that Bigelow would put up the 50% in advance. Contractor was ready to go on that. I'm confident that he'd get the rest of his payment from them, and if for whatever reason Bigelow is not able to make that payment, well, I think he'd be just as happy to work for us to do that same project and under the same terms, and leave it to us to recoup the money however we have to.
I think it was a good meeting that, I think it was very positive. I think one of the good things about it is that the contractor representative Bigelow was there with the city, and we went through it together and identified those areas. So when he goes back and reviews them, he said he's probably going to bring Bigelow off because we painted right on pavement the limits of the marks, put the measurements right on there too, so he can bring Bigelow out there and show them these are the exact spots that we in the city both agree should be patched. So Bigelow will know that the money he's spending, he's not wasting his money, he's not repairing areas that the city thinks needs to be patched, but this contractor doesn't agree. So doing that jointly the other day, I think he can assure Bigelow that the money is being invested wisely and is getting value for it and not wasting money. And I think the city has the comfort level of knowing too that there are areas that we both agree are the most critical ones to get done. And if we can get done, it'll be something we can live with at least for a reasonable lifespan of that road.
Well, as I said, if 5 years from now, half those building sites on that street are filled and we need to look at upgrading the road at that point, we'd be real happy with that problem.
Yeah.
I think at this point, the biggest fight for residents out there is have to drive over that exposed lip on the curb. We heard that
Yes,
times
yes,
we were out there walking the
yes,
streets. But they're all looking forward to getting that gap filled in so that they'll constantly bump over there when they drive in on those drivers.
And that one area that's settled, so I'm sure they're tired of that also.
It definitely make it more appealing up there for even a prospective buyer to come in.
Okay, we move on to new business then. Rose Fest request stand permit for the liquor store, the parade permit, porta potty payment, street closures, sidewalk vendors on 2nd Street, first annual Kenyon Fire Department 5K run walk route approval, and the VFW dance permit. And I believe we can approve all of those with one motion. And do we have a motion to so approve? So move.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
D, Small Cities Development Application, Resolution 2015-09, a resolution declaring the City of Kenyon as the applicant and partner for the proposed Kenyon Comprehensive Small Cities Development Program.
Yep.
Rehabilitation projects contained in the Community Finance Preliminary Proposal. And
We have two representatives here from SEMCRA, so you guys want to go ahead and.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. I'm Karen Ducharme. I'm the Community Development Manager at Central, and with me I have Deputy Director Bucky Baranek. The reason we're in front of you here tonight is to get approval to do a survey to determine the need and interest in a housing rehab, rental rehab, and a commercial rehab program. We would do the survey and then review the results either in September, October timeframe with the city. So the housing rehab program has been done several times over in the city. The first one was done in 1987 for about $650,000. That was an award. 43 units of housing, owner-occupied housing were done at that time. There were some rental units done at that time, and then 26 units of commercial were also done. So There was also grants in 1998 for owner occupied and rental new construction, and then 2004 as well. So the city has had a strong history of this program being funded in doing projects. The city was also part of a countywide in 2007 and 2009 for this program. The information was provided, information on the program specifics of how we typically design our programs so that we are meeting cost effectiveness, impact, and then need, which is basically the three components that the state scores applications on. So the state awards these funds to municipalities, so the city is actually the applicant, and we would just partner to develop the application with the city. Now, we wouldn't do that step until we met with the city and talked about the results of that survey. Because we know what the thresholds are to be competitive in this process. These are federal funds handed down to the state. They have to meet federal objectives. So for housing, owner-occupied and rental housing, rehab, you have to serve low and moderate income households. So that would be anybody at 80% of the county median income and below. And those income limits are on the flyer that was provided to you. So we kind of designed our program a little differently in the last couple of years so that we are having more loans coming in, an owner's match coming in with the deferred loans. So those loans, if that owner stays in that house for 10 full years, they're forgiven at the end of the 10th year. In years 1 through 6, if they sell, that money is paid back to the city, directly to the city. The city manages those funds. They are required to report on them. And then they can be reused for another purpose. So if they're at 80% and below, or excuse me, 50% and below, they get 100% of their project funded. So that is a 10-year deferred loan. It goes away if they stay in their house for 10 full years. It's challenging for people to comprehend that could be out there, but it's one of the best sources for low and moderate income people to be able to fix up their homes, which in turn increases property values in the city. If they're at 51 to 80% of the county median income, they are required to put in 12% of the total project cost. The maximum that the state's program would contribute is $25,000. So 12% is $3,000. So we looked at other opportunities for them to get other grant dollars. So we are looking at rural development and some of their funds, weatherization programs. We try to partner with other agencies that may have like a weatherization program, and then go from there. Any questions on the housing rehab component? On the rental, the property must meet must be rented to 51% of the units must be rented to those at 80% of the county median income and below, and the rents must be affordable or meet the HUD's fair market rents for the period of the loan. So the minimum loan term that the state allows us to have is 5 years. We extended out to 10 years to make our cost effectiveness on that project increase. It gives us a little more when we're applying for funding. And then the commercial loan component is a 50% deferred loan, 30% owner's match, and 20% is a low interest loan, and typically we structure those at 3%. So automatically, even if none of the deferred loans require a payback because of selling, your commercial loans, if funded, would provide automatic repayment to the city where you're generating a revolving loan fund that can be re-loaned out to other commercial properties for improvements. So our purpose here tonight is to get approval to go ahead with the survey to determine if there's a need and an interest in the city of Kenyon.
How would you conduct the survey? Go door to door and ask people, or?
We do a direct mailing
Okay.
to,
So people have to look at their mail and actually read it.
yes.
Gee,
We'll promote it though,
Yes.
on the
Okay.
website, the
Yep.
cable access channel.
Right.
We do
But-
a news release, we work with the
Yeah.
city on what we're doing. I mean, sometimes cities have Facebook pages, so we put it on there, or some other avenues, like,
I got one question. On owner occupied housing, and the reason I bring this up is it's something that I've been thinking of doing myself. People will put their home in a revocable trust to get away from the possible probate problems. Does that still qualify as owner occupied as long as the person living there is in that trust?
I believe so, and then they can put the additional names on the mortgage. So like if they had a son or daughter, they're passing it on to, there's specific rules on that, but they can add a name to the repayment agreement, which is essentially the
loan,
mortgage.
so-
The other option is if the city were to, if an owner was to sell their property, but they sold to an income eligible buyer, the city can pass on that mortgage to the new buyer as long as they meet the income guidelines at that time.
And the clock wouldn't start over again?
Nope, it just basically changes the name on the mortgage and the dates stay the same. They would have to pay, typically you would want them to pay the recording fees, and the seller would be responsible for paying that
So
satisfaction.
for instance, if the person who originally took out the loan sold it at year 5 to someone who was also income eligible, that second person would only have to stay there for 5 more years for the loan to be forgiven.
Correct. Yeah, and it's the full 10 year, it's full 10 years, so it gets into timing and dates and that kind of thing of when.
Right, but
you-
that
Right,
doesn't necessarily have to be the same person.
right, so it is assumable, those can be handled on a case-by-case basis, because you don't wanna promote fixing up houses and anything like that, but
No,
that
I
is
don't want
definitely
people
an
flipping them.
correct, right, that's definitely an option to the city to set in their policies, that would have to be handled on a case-by-case basis, and they would have to apply for that, sort of approval.
Thank you, I think that's all the questions I have.
So this, when we talked about this last month, this is the first step in the small cities process is the community survey. So this is part of that program, and this is what they do. This is part of the service that they provide for the counties that participate in cities in this SEMCRA. So this is part of the whole process of applying.
What's the lead time on that? From actually you get the surveys in to where you kind of get it up and running?
About a year. We would be applying for the 2016 round of funding.
Oh, okay.
So they have a preliminary proposal due in November. And then if the state takes about a month to review those, and then they rank them. If you're ranked marginally competitive or competitive, you're invited to submit a full application back to the state, and that's due at the end of February. And then you find out usually in May, if you're awarded funding. And usually they try to invite only back what they think they're going to be able to fund. Not saying that, yes, if you're invited back, you're guaranteed funding, but it's highly likely that you would be funded if you're invited back.
Is this a yearly program?
Yes.
And has Kenyon applied every year but only been awarded for a few years?
No, not through us. To my knowledge, there hasn't. And I actually can say no, they haven't, because I look at who gets awarded.
Yeah. You had mentioned 2004 and.
That was a countywide. At that time, they were allowing countywide applications, so,
Okay.
and it was very easy to spend the money. I mean, literally, we didn't have to do all the survey. Now we've gone back to the old way of targeting neighborhoods, and That's why we do the survey to determine where the need is, where the interest is, and we look at where the strongest part of the city that is, and that's our recommendation to go that area, to that route. So the one thing I didn't really talk about is community support. They like to see that the city's invested in this project, and it's not just something Centra went to the city and said, this is what we want to do in your city. They want to see that this is actual partnership. So typically the state recommends the local match of $5,000 to $7,500, excuse me, dollars to see to use as match in this. That whatever the city would designate as a local match to this, Central will match dollar for dollar. The city isn't required to come up with that match until you receive an award.
And is this per household?
No,
or
total.
Is this total?
Total for the entire application. So whatever the city would approve to designate as a local match, we will match dollar for dollar. But like I said, you wouldn't be responsible for that until we have a successful award. So it would be in 2016. So that is also part of what I'm here tonight for, to talk about that and to get approval on that part of it as well.
So this, and I talked about this the last month or two, this is a long process and it's very competitive and it may take a couple of applications to get funded. But I mean, if you look at the benefit, and really, we don't have much skin to put in, it doesn't cost us much to do this, so. And I think that Kenyon's got the market, the need for it. And I guess only time will tell, and what other cities may apply in a given year as far as how competitive it is, it just depends on who else applies, and usually funding is fairly, I don't know, stable.
It is like the amount that the state gets for this program is staying the same or decreasing slightly. So every year it becomes even more competitive. But like Mark was saying, it may take a couple rounds in order to get funded. So worst case scenario, if we didn't get funded for 2016, we would have a debriefing with the state and talk specifically about what didn't score well in Kenyon's application and what we can do to make it improved and more competitive for the next round.
And would you have to have another survey done, or no?
Depends on the results. Sometimes we go back and we look at a neighborhood and say, okay, we need to kind of beef up this part, but we wouldn't have to do a full survey again.
Now, in the wording here of the resolution, declaring the city of Kenyon as the applicant and partner, I am assuming that the partner wording refers to this local match, correct? Or
Yeah.
And the money to it.
Yeah.
Money, yes.
But if you do get funded and you look at the amount of money,
Yeah, but I mean, that's what created the partner part.
Yeah,
As you said,
it's I don't know, it's even 1%, but the amount we put in would be minuscule compared to the return, obviously, so.
I can give you an example. The city of, we're working with the city of Plainview. They just got funded for 2015 funding. We got $853,000 approximately to do rental, commercial, and owner-occupied housing. We're leveraging $300,000 of additional rental money from the state, from another state agency, and the city invested $5,000 into that application. So the cost benefit, it kind of speaks for itself.
That's why that 1%.
Yes. Okay. And actually, we could have that $3,500 go towards our $5,000.
In the interest of speeding up this meeting that's already getting long, I'm
Yes,
going to
I
make a
know.
motion to approve Resolution 2015-09.
I'll second that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approve hiring of lifeguards Lauren Berg and Corinne Dahl.
So moved.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we get to another part that's going to slow us down.
Yeah.
4th Street and 6th Street overlay proposal.
Before we get started here, what's Sixth Street now? I'm a little confused. Sixth Street overlay. Sixth Street goes past the school,
Right, it's in that general area.
but now is it,
Yeah.
see, I went up there and the sign at the corner of Spring Street and Sixth Street is quarter turn off. So I'm assuming it's actually from Sixth Street on Spring Street to Seventh Street. Because there is an area in there that needs work.
And there is on Spring Street also, there is some problems,
But
yeah.
is that what you think, Doug? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Well, what I was looking at was, yeah, the signs are turned, there's a number of other ones here in the city that are turned, they need to be adjusted. But how I gathered it to be is from Second Street, Bullets going, then it stops at the end of the school, you go around the block and you continue on. That is again, Bullets, if you turn the sign the right way, and it goes up to the end of the end of Sixth Street, which would be Seventh Street.
I seen some markings there on the corner of Spring and Sixth Street.
Yeah.
Some for go for one, but, so, I don't know really where we're talking about here.
The
Well,
marks are
what-
for a water thing. The marks are for a water repair.
Okay.
Are they blue?
No, they just
Remember
marked
where
where
they
they
go?
wanted to
I
locate
think
it.
they were just, they're marking.
Oh, okay. Because they do that for watering.
Yeah,
Well, and if you look at so before you get too far into the questions that I know have been brought up to me, and I'll try to address those before we get too far into this, but the BMI quote does kind of list out the three streets: Willis Street, Gunderson to Fourth, Willis Street, Fourth and Fifth Street, and then Sixth Street at 214 foot long at 7th Street, and then it's got the square yards, so he's got that broken down. Now, the,
there is no Sixth Street and Seventh Street.
yeah, I think that's probably an error.
There's not a 500 block.
Right.
I'm assuming that is Spring Street at Seventh Street, or is it Spring Street going this?
No, Spring Street is probably one block to the east.
That goes past your place.
So the next one, Bullis starts, well, you got your map there,
I do,
Mark. Actually, Fifth Street is where the school is now. That would technically be Fifth Street.
5th Street right here, 6th Street down
Yeah,
here.
there you go.
And, you know, I certainly can get a map, scan it in and email it to everybody tomorrow. And I can get Steve to confirm exactly this is the area we're talking about. Joe went out there, and I'm not asking Joe to say where it is, but you did go out there with Steve and, you know, look this over.
He showed me the spots, I don't remember exactly where they were. This
On
was
the map,
something.
right, and I'm not gonna try to draw you a line on this tonight, but, basically, the question here is, okay, we have two bids, they are about 20% apart. One of them, the higher one, has real good detail about what he proposes to do. The other one doesn't have the amount of detail. And so my recommendation is, no matter what happens, would be to have Joe talk to these companies, whether you say, okay, we like bituminous materials, and Joe can just kind of confirm everything, or maybe go out there and meet with them, whatever needs to be done. I don't think it's gonna be very time consuming, but just to kind of make sure that everything is lined up. Now, if you go with LaCan, then what Joe's gonna have to do is talk to them and basically, and again, I don't think it's a huge time thing, but, you know, lay out, okay, this is what has to be done in about 10 minutes, you know, of talking to them on the phone probably. Does your bid reflect this to this degree, or would you have to, you know, add more to it? And if they say our bid, will cover everything that's spelled out that we need done, I mean, if you look at BMI's bid, then, okay, I guess that number is, what it is. We have not worked with LaCan. I haven't worked with them, Steve hasn't worked with them. BMI does a lot of work, and we've worked with them quite a bit. I think we're fairly comfortable with them, but again, it's $10,000 more also. So it's kind of and I mean, we could come back with more information. I mean, I guess we would have time, we could, but what I'm saying is if we go with LaCan, obviously we're gonna have to confirm with them that this number covers the same stuff. And Steve went out with both these companies and went through this with them. I wasn't there, so I mean, I don't know what LaCan told him, that he's gonna do it exactly the same as what BMI, but I will say BMI's bid is a lot more thorough, and it's a lot more professional, and we certainly could justify using them. We don't have to use the low bidder, because these aren't bids, these are quotes, and we're under 100,000. So we certainly could we can use the council, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, the council can use, whichever one of these they want to go.
Well, and again, the question becomes, are you comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges here? And
I see the oranges.
yeah, exactly, that's what I see as well.
Newspapers, you cannot tell which one.
Yeah,
it looks like
here's the
oranges.
question, here's the question that I have. From LaCan, what it says in there, we would all be able to read what it is. It sounds like we're just patching over, we're doing the edging and patching.
Well, is that what they're doing? Yeah, we don't know.
Now, you look at the bituminous material one, it shows in there, if I'm correct, and I'm looking at it, manhole risers, gate ring risers, and the whole works.
Yeah, he's got everything in there.
You gotta do everything. Now, are they doing this on this one?
That's what we have to find out.
That's exactly the problem.
That's why I'm going back again, that I'm complaining about, is when we put together a bid, we should specifically spell out, this is what we want, this is what we want, everything down, instead of bringing all this paperwork in, taking up administration time, our time, everybody's time, and we're not moving along. Have it down, cut and dry, this is what it is. If there's some options that need to be done, fine. We can work with that.
But put that more to the contractor who prepared this quote.
But it has to be up to us to tell them what we want done.
Okay, so here's my answer to this. Now, this situation, I agree, LaCan's bid doesn't tell us much, except the yardage, but
Yeah.
this is normal maintenance, and normally when we do maintenance, Steve puts together a list of streets that need patching. This situation is after Steve looked at it, then he had Joe come out there and look at it, and it was obvious these areas needed more attention, but this is still not an area that I would tell you I would recommend a spec. That this is not an area that, because it's really a maintenance thing, that I would tell you that I would recommend putting, having the engineer put a spec together, because that's gonna add more overhead than we can afford. So what happens, normally when there's patchwork done, we have a list of the areas and they give us, the amount of either total yardage or yardage by the street or whatever. And it's a common practice kind of, I'm trying to explain this in layman's terms here, but it's a common thing when we patch, we do the same thing here, we did the same thing in Pine Island, we did the same thing in Moose Lake, we kind of follow the same. What happened here is it's got to be where all of a sudden we have to do a little, say, mill off, we got to raise some street manholes up to do that, but this isn't normal for this kind of thing, I will tell you that.
Yeah.
And so to put a spec together for this would have been cost prohibitive. Now, when we do a more major project, we do a spec, we always do. If we do a, like a water line, sewer line replacement, or we take the whole pavement off and we're doing a 4 block area or a 1 block area, we do have a spec for that. But this is a situation where, and I'm not sure how we get to that point where we have patchwork. Normally the patchwork doesn't even come from the council, it's in the budget. And then every year we've got certain areas that are patched as long as it's within the budget. then we just hire BMI or whoever, Steve meets with and we're comfortable with. That doesn't even come from the council because it's in the budget.
Yeah.
And it's done the same way every year. You put down, 2 inches or 1.5 or whatever it is. But what happened with this is, this became a little more maintenance
Yeah.
than we normally do. But it's also something that, I'll be honest with you, you wouldn't put a normal engineering spec together for this because you'd spend $10,000 or $15,000 doing that, and it's just not there. It'd be too much. So the bituminous one is what you want to see. That's laid out the way it should be. And I think, like the mayor said, it's really this other bid that's kind of just, here you go.
So then the next one then coming back in will stipulate everything that's gonna be done. So we know we're treating oranges with oranges and apples with apples. Is that correct?
Well, when we do patchwork,
Yeah, but
it's
this,
not gonna come in front of you, no.
yeah, but this is the manhole covers and the rising where this one is. We're gonna know where we're at, right, on the cost, what they're actually gonna do.
Depends upon what.
It depends which one is
the contractor
accepted.
puts under his-
If you take VMIs, then VMIs it's all there. Everything's laid out.
Yeah.
LaCan, we have to go back and we have to get that, and we have to find out either this is the number, or this is what it's gonna cost if they do the same thing that's supposed to be done. If that answers your question. So LaCans, we need more information, VMIs, you don't.
Right, I think what the administrator is saying is, the recommendation is that you would select one of these quotes tonight. If you would select LaCans because it's a lower price, you select it contingent upon confirming that they do include all those miscellaneous items that are not specifically listed in their quote. If you're uncomfortable with that though, if you're more comfortable with the BMI quote, even though it is a higher price, but it seems more complete and more prepared,
It's a known quantity.
you can select that one and then the direct staff to proceed to work with BMI to get the work done.
I'm comfortable with that one.
Is
That
that,
one I don't buy.
Mark, is that
I can't
essentially what
understand
you're?
it. Oh, I can't understand it. Why can't you just plainly put on a sheet of paper, just like these contractors sent to us, this is what they're gonna do. This contractor said what we're gonna do. Why can't we ask the contractor, we wanna improve this street, what it's gonna cost? And that's simple enough to do. It's just like over at Community, if they're gonna, I hate to say that, but if we're gonna have a concrete slab, we tell them what we want, we know how much it's gonna cost.
The answer is, it depends. Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could certainly come back with a spec that would say, okay, this is the square yardage, this is the depth of the pavement. There's 4 manhole covers that have to be raised. I mean, yeah, we could come back to that, but what I'm saying is, this isn't normal when we do patchwork, and we end up in a situation like this. Now, next time we do this, one thing that, yeah, what I could do is say, either Steve and I can put it together, or we can, have Joe take a couple hours and put a list, a spec. I don't want to call it an official specification, but a checklist maybe is a better word.
Yeah.
Can't you request to them, just say, what are you actually all gonna do, and what aren't you gonna do?
Yeah.
Well, we know what BMI's going to do.
Yeah, I know, but.
Or we say, hey, we've got another bid, and this is what they're including, are you including the same thing?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
you put that in writing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we go with LaCan, we have to do that, because we
Yeah.
can't go with
Yeah.
this.
And
But
it
if
seems
you're-
to me that some years ago, we had McCann bid before, and they were one of the low bidders. And for some reason or other, we didn't go with them. Whether it was we didn't like the references or what, but it's been a few years ago.
I'd like to see this table until you find out exactly what's included in the cans bid, and then plus references, and what kind of material they're gonna use.
Right.
A little more information.
Are you making that motion, Fred? I will second that motion.
Third bid.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, we need to know what we're dealing with here.
With LaCan.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. mean, if there's any.
It is a large difference.
So it hadn't been much of a difference, I'd say.
It could have been $3,000, well, let's go with the people we know for sure we can trust.
Exactly.
When it's 10,000, it's worth exploring further. And some references, someone else that they've done work for that we can get an opinion on what the quality of the work was.
Okay, so what I would like to, then, like I said before, in next year, I guess we'll probably be able to do more of this in-house, but what I'd like to do, this is just a side note here, but I would like to have Joe, especially with McCann, talk to them, because he's an expert, and he can take the BMI bid and say, okay, is your bid gonna include these things? A lot better than even Steve, I think, could, but especially than I could. So that's what my plan is, and Joe, I don't think that's gonna be a big, time-wise, it's gonna be a big.
And through your contacts, that you
Especially the reference.
see who else may have used this company.
Yeah, like the Rochester office or the Burnsville office
I'm
or.
assuming we have a contact person at McCann, I don't see a name and, well, I see a signature that you can't read. There must be a contact person that you and Steve have for McCann.
Yeah, I guess we could find that out.
I mean, it's simple enough to ask them for the references, that's a pretty standard request, but yeah, we could certainly identify some of those items that are not explicitly stated in their bid, the traffic control, the structure adjustments, those types of things.
Yeah, what kind of payment mix they're gonna use.
Yes.
I mean, normally we don't ask for that, but
Yep.
I don't think we need much on the BMI end of it. I think we
No.
just need it from McCann. So you can kind of use BMI as a guide. And then if we run into this next year where we gotta do a street curb to curb, we'll try to put a list together of some kind. We will do that. But normally when you do patching, you know, they just come in and we tell them these are the areas and they come and patch them. We don't, you know, put a spec like that together, but
This is a larger package.
if we run into this, we'll try to come up with something that spells out what it is.
Well, that's what I'm saying, $10,000, and it looks like
Well,
it's two different things.
Oh,
I agree
you know,
with
We'll find out, we'll find out something more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we can't even tell on McCann's proposal what area they're covering.
Yeah.
If they've got the same measurements as
Yeah.
BMI or not, so
I agree.
their
Okay.
cost, if they're off a little bit in their measurements, that would definitely affect their cost.
Moving along, water rate increase of 30 cents per 1,000 gallons. And this was approved by the Utilities Commission at the last meeting.
It's just information for the council.
Right. A bit less than 10% increase, going from 320 per 1,000 to 350 per 1,000, which is still very, very cheap. Okay, then we come to a sad and happy part of the agenda. The resignation of Councilmember Russ Thorne. Resolution 2015-08, declaring a vacancy to exist in the office of City Council and providing for the appointment thereto.